You just watched a video of different styles of note-taking, and you're also reading in your textbook this week about different types of strategies that you can use to effectively take notes. So I'm going to give you a couple of actually 3 other note-taking tips, and I'm going to present them using 3 different techniques. So why do we take notes while we're in college? Well, we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to make a record of what our instructor is saying. We're hoping to capture all of that information that they're verbally, presenting to us as accurately as possible. And then, of course, most importantly, we want to turn that into something that we are able to understand and learn from. So for most of us, the reality is that we are going to forget a lot of what's taking place during the lecture and after the lecture as well. There's so much time that passes, so much life that happens that we forget a lot of that information. So having good notes is essential. It really is. So the first style I'm going to talk with you about is mind mapping. So this is a technique. It's definitely an alternative from the traditional, linear note taking where it's your name, the date, and you just take copious notes, complete sentences, all that good stuff. So this is an idea where the main subject or idea is placed in the center, and then instead of writing whole sentences, you're going to type or write in, either one, the main points and subpoints which are connected to that central idea. So this particular strategy encourages your brain to actively process information instead of typing or writing down, as I mentioned, copious notes. So the good news about this one is little thinking is required as you are just, putting the snapshots of things in your little bubbles, connecting them to your main point. And the other thing that's really good is that relationships to the central idea can easily be identified, how things are connected. So let's kind of go ahead and go over some of these. Be here and now. You want to do all that you can to be present in the moment. So whether you are in class, whether you are at home taking your online class, you're wanting to get the most critical ideas down on your paper. You only want the key terms and information. Don't worry about complete sentences. Those can come down the road, through your reading or when you fill other things in. Use abbreviations whenever you can. That'll keep, things moving along quickly and get that information down. So you also want to make sure that just what the instructors are talking about in terms of their key terms, that's what's on there, and then anything that's related to that central idea. So another tip that you might want to keep in mind is if it's something that your instructor is repeating over and over, then most likely that's something important, most likely going to be on a test. And also something to kind of watch for is if they pause before giving an idea or pause after they've said something. That's usually an indicator that it's pretty important information they want you to know as well. So the second idea is to disengage from the rest of the world as best as possible. I understand there are those times when we absolutely cannot. We're waiting for a phone call. We have to have our phones, right there. I understand that happens, but when you can, do all that you can to put your cell phone away. Put it on silent. If your phone's going off, vibrating, it's definitely going to pull you away from that lecture where you're going to be missing important information. And something else to think about is maybe the person next to you is talking away, or maybe they're on their phone and it's super distracting and you're, losing focus on what's going on in class. Maybe that next time, move seats, sit somewhere else next time. Just that way you can really try and focus and commit to what your instructor is saying, okay? We want to make sure that information is getting communicated to you as well. So keep your notes organized, dated, and neat. So if your instructor is asking you to review your notes for the quiz and it's going to be on the last 2 weeks and you do not have any dates on your notes, that's going to make it pretty difficult to study for that test or exam or quiz. If they're placed neatly in a binder with the dates on them, or maybe you have them in an e-folder of some sort, that can be super helpful for you guys. Categorize things if you need to. That's one of the reasons that we have you do a binder in this particular class. We want you to be organized, to have separate subsections. That way you can put papers where you need them and they're easy to find. So another thing is if you cannot read what you have written, that can make things difficult as well, especially if your instructor's introducing a new idea of some sort and you're writing so sloppy that you can't, make sense of what you've written, then your notes are going to be very hard to follow. So this is also where if you're able to type faster than you write, break out that laptop. If your instructor will allow you to have it, by all means, use it. Putting your notes into your own words, I'll talk a little more about this in a minute, but translate those notes so that they make sense to you. When you are just writing all these things down that your instructor is saying verbatim, word for word, or exactly what they're saying, if you have no idea what any of it means and you can't translate that into your own words, that's going to make it hard as well. So review those notes and put those ideas into your own words so that you understand them. And note taking is something that we've been asked to do since elementary school. So maybe for some of you, it seems like a complete waste of time. Maybe it just seems like busy work and, oh my goodness, this doesn't even help me. But there are so many strategies out there that your note-taking skills, they can be improved. And it can also be a skill that even at the college level, you finally are able to learn. Okay, the second style that I'm going to talk with you about is the outline style of note-taking. So you want to make sure that you are coming to class not only mentally preparing for effective note-taking, but physically as well. So something that you can do to physically prepare: eat something. If your class is at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you have not eaten all day, most of us are going to be super hungry. You're not able to think. Your mind is not at its peak performance state. So do what you can to make sure that you're physically taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep when you can. Schedule those classes if you're able to when you're most alert. That's going to be super helpful for you. Again, I understand work and family and life gets in the way of scheduling sometimes, and you have to take classes when you can. So just something to keep in mind. Be prepared to listen, take notes, and ask questions. So you want to make sure that you have done the reading, you've completed the homework. That way you have a basic understanding of the concepts when your instructor starts talking about them. Have questions. Don't wait until that final or midterm, and hope, oh, maybe my question will get answered next week. I don't want to ask, this time around. Ask them and make sure that you've brought the correct and proper materials that you need to take notes. So if it's a laptop, make sure you've got that power supply. That way your laptop doesn't, turn off on you. Make sure you've got that pen, your paper, your binder, whatever it is that you need. And bring your textbook to class. So instructors are often going to refer to it. The good news is if you're purchasing your textbook, you can write in that textbook, okay? Take notes directly in there. If you're on your laptop or maybe you have an e-textbook, there's always some sort of a note-taking tool in there where you can highlight, cut, paste. There's all sorts of different things embedded in various e-textbooks. So that's something else that you can do. And then of course, don't be left with unanswered questions going into a midterm or final. I kind of already talked about that one. Ask those questions. And if you're not comfortable asking in class, then go to your instructor's office hours. Email them your questions. It's super important that you're taking care of that. The third style we're going to talk about are Cornell notes. So there are a lot of templates online that you can go to. So if you are going to be taking them on Cornell notes on paper, you're going to want to rule your paper with a 2-inch margin on the left, leaving a 6-inch area on the right, which you're going to take your notes. Okay, and if you're using Microsoft Word, you can set your margins to the appropriate inch, and then also create a table so you can create this exact thing. There's so many templates online, you can just type them in and they'll pop up for you. So what happens when you blank out? It happens to everyone. You're sitting in class and then your mind just wanders. The next thing you know, 5 minutes has passed and you have no idea what your instructor's been talking about. So something that you can do, leave a blank spot where your instructor was talking, where you kind of blanked out, and then just know that you missed that particular portion of the lecture. So the idea is that you're going to go back to that area and you're going to hopefully fill it in. Maybe you need to ask a classmate, talk with your instructor, or maybe you're able to piece together what it was that you missed. Make sure that you're writing down what you don't know. So what you already know, that's great. You don't need to go back through and rewrite that down and revisit all of that. If you've already got that, banked in your mind and you already know what's going on, awesome. But, focus on what you don't know. And then of course, write or type that down. Handwrite or type your notes and then go home and translate them in your own words. Again, I mentioned that earlier, super important. And you're also going to want to fill things in from your reading. Maybe you missed something. Maybe your professor was referring to 10 very specific dates in your U.S. history class and you were only able to get 6 of them. Well, go back through, write that down. That way you know to come back to it. You know what you need to look for. And research has shown that the very best way to retain information is to study and review notes soon after you have taken them, but in brief intervals over a longer period of time. So break those super long study periods into shorter segments if you can. And also you want to do what you can to think about however you've formulated your notes, you should be able to test yourself on them. So I wanted to share with you a quote from Michael Friedman. He's a researcher at Stanford, and I'm going to read the quote directly from the article that he had written. He said, "Students should test themselves on the notes as it informs them what they know and what they do not know. Successful recall of tested information improves your ability to recall information later, as you'll be less likely to forget it." So just kind of something to keep in mind. And then, of course, whenever you can, use shorthand, abbreviations, and I put a couple of examples down here. Use the double P's for paragraph, the number sign or hashtag for number, and then of course the W with the slash for width. So just do that when you can, saves you some time. So of course, as always, if you've already got something in place for you, awesome. Okay, you are so fortunate. So share that information with us on this week's discussion. If there's a new technique, let us know about it. And, maybe it's just something we haven't considered. But otherwise, be willing to maybe try something new. See if it works well for you. It may totally change how you study and really help improve how you're able to retain information. And as all new things, they're most likely going to be awkward at first, but who knows, if you use it enough, maybe it'll become easier and, just become habit. And as you try new strategies, think about asking that person next to you or emailing, someone for an idea or something like that. But if you're going to try something new and you're afraid, oh gosh, what if I try Cornell Notes and I totally missed this because I'm so focused on trying to do this right? Ask that person, if maybe they'd be willing to share their notes with you. And who knows, it could create a relationship of some sort where you're studying together and, things like that could be something neat. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful. As always, let me know if you've got questions.